Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Truth About Death and Dying. I am your host. My name is Sheila. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I would like to throw out a disclaimer that I am not an expert in anything, but I do have experience with death and dying and also with grief support. What I want to talk about today, because I'm trying to figure out sort of how to navigate through and where to start. And there's so many pieces to caregiving for someone that's dying. But I think the most important one to kind of start off with is the designation of roles. So if you're just at the start of this, if your loved one has just gotten a terminal diagnosis and you're finding your way, or if you're already in the midst of it, hopefully this information will be helpful to you. So before my dad got sick, he kind of designated me the captain of the ship, in that I was his power of attorney and I was on his checking accounts in case something happened and I needed to pay his bills for him. So my role was sort of already in place before my dad ever got his terminal diagnosis. And I was okay with it. I was happy to take on the role. I was able to take on the role. But a few things took place that made me kind of rethink and, what that role really means. So if you are, quote unquote, the captain of the ship where your family member is concerned or your loved one is concerned, it's a job that you're not always going to like, and it really sucks sometimes, but somebody needs to take charge. There needs to be somebody that is making the big decisions. And I'm not saying you're just like, I'm going to decide this or that. If you have siblings or other support around you, definitely there needs to be conversations where, the health and well-being of your loved one is concerned. But there does need to be someone driving the boat, so to speak. So I'm assuming if you're tuning in that that's probably your role. If not, maybe you're looking to help support the person that is the captain of the ship. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope this will be helpful to you as well. So when my father first we got the diagnosis, my brothers and I went to Boston with my dad, and we sort of had a plan in place. So we had to go back to Boston and spend probably a week, just with my dad in recovery and whatnot before he could come back home to Maine. So the first time we went, I rented an Airbnb a little bit outside of Boston because Boston's expensive and, looking to save a buck. The other piece to this was, my dad definitely needed to have support there, whether it was me and my brothers and extended family or whatever, but he needed at least one person there for support. Well, my financial situation at the time was not the best, and renting a place for a week inside Boston, outside of Boston, was easily going to cost me anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 just to stay, just for a place for me to sleep. So I rented this Airbnb a little bit outside of Boston, thinking that my brothers and my husband at the time and other family members would come and go during the week. All my own assumption. I never had a conversation with any of them about it. So this is key also. Communication is a big deal. So I rented this Airbnb, and my dad and I stayed there the night before surgery, and then and my brother, my family, my ex-husband, everybody was there the day of the very first surgery. So then after that first initial surgery that he had to block the bad cells and whatever, everybody packed up and went back to Maine, leaving me behind. So I was in this Airbnb that did not have a secure deadbolt lock on the inside of the house. So the person that owned the place could literally come in at any time, and I would have been vulnerable to that. Luckily, that didn't happen. But the neighborhood, I didn't know Boston from anything, so I didn't know if I was in a safe neighborhood or whatnot. Although, when I typically book a place, I do read reviews and see what other people say about the area. So I didn't feel safe the whole week that I was there, and I wasn't even there a full week anyway. We were only there for like 3 or 4 days, but I didn't feel safe the whole time I was there. And but I was there to support my dad, and I muddled through, and it was fine. And then after my dad had his first surgery, and we were heading back to Maine, he was really down in the dumps. Like my dad was always just very outgoing and positive, and just could find the good in anybody, anytime. Rare occasion to see my dad down. So for me, I was like, wow, this is really different. So, on the way home from Boston, I tried to explain to him. I said, Dad, you're gonna regain your strength. You're gonna feel good again. Just hang in there. And he did. And slowly but these were all eye openers. So kind of like the dress rehearsal for the big show, the big surgery. So we came back home, and it was around Christmas time, and I'd been gone for about a week and hadn't slept in my own bed, hadn't seen my husband. And, I was looking for a little respite. I thought, I have 2 older brothers, and one of them or both of them should give me a break. But it was around the holidays, and people had plans, and they just assumed when I got back, I would keep on taking care of my dad, which did not sit well with me. I have not always been the best communicator, even though I love to talk. But when it comes to really personal feelings of how, like telling someone, this is how you made me feel, and that's hard. It's hard for me, or I'm getting better, but it was really hard then to communicate that to my siblings. Like, hey, you know what? I've been with Dad all week, and it's time for you to step up and give me a break. And, at the time, one of my stepdaughters was home visiting, and I hadn't had a chance to see her. And so there were, and so emotions, and I'm tired because I haven't slept well because I didn't feel safe. So there are all these emotions building up in me. And, nobody is just volunteering to come and give me a break. And so, my dad wasn't in dire need for a long period of time after that first surgery, but I could feel my resentment building towards my brothers and my family, my extended family members. And it's not a place anyone wants to be. No one wants to feel resentful. They want, to feel supported. So so this was all for me a real eye opener. So as we moved forward towards my dad's big surgery, I made a few changes in how things were going to be. And so I before we even went to Boston, I told my brothers, my extended family, this is how it's going to be. When we get back, here's a calendar. Sign up for the days that you're going to be here to take care of Dad. So I've been called bossy for a long, long time, but I like to consider myself decisive. And sometimes you need to just assert yourself like that and just let them, pardon my language, but tell them where the bear shits. Because, people, if they think that you'll handle it, they'll let you handle it. And what they don't realize is how much the toll that it takes on you. So when we went back for the second surgery, I had things in place. I had a calendar up for people to sign up and take a turn taking care of my father. And the other thing I had to take into consideration was sleeping arrangements. So my father he had a couch that was super comfortable to sit on, but not to sleep on. And it didn't pull out. He had a spare room, but it was an office. There was no other bedroom to be had. So I purchased a comfortable rollaway bed to sleep on, because if you're taking care of someone, you need your rest. And so, these were just little things in my scenario that I took care of ahead of time. The other thing I had to take care of or schedule was a place to stay while in Boston. So given the first dress rehearsal run where nobody stayed with me for the week, I decided that I would get a hotel room this time. So I felt secure, at least having security and cameras and, and whatnot around. And the cost was about the same. The cost was something I couldn't afford, and my brothers couldn't afford. So I had to ask my dad, which was horrible to do because, at the time that he's dying and having this big, or not dying, but having this big surgery, I'm saying, well, Dad, can you cover the hotel bill so I can come down and stay with you? but I had to ask him because I didn't have the money to do it at the time. So that was all fine. We got the hotel, and my dad and I went down, just the two, just the two of us, the night before the surgery. And my brothers and my nephew came down the day of the surgery. So I put these things into place, had everything ready to go. My dad sort of had an idea of how he was going to feel after the surgery. Excuse me. And so the second piece, the second leg, the big show, went much smoother. I had respite when I got back. I was able to sleep in my own bed, see my family, and my brothers stepped up, and other family members, and took their turn taking care of my father. So that was key, and it was kind of like, I think, a turning point for me, in that I couldn't just sit on my feelings. I had to speak up. So when my father got his terminal diagnosis and hospice came in and all that, not right away, but like when Dad got hospice on board for the second time, and I moved in with him, where it became apparent that he was not able to spend any time alone anymore. He had to have constant eyes on him because he was a fall risk. So I devised a schedule, and I said, I will be here, like Monday through Friday or whatever. I can't remember now if it was Friday I took time off, or it was like a couple of nights I got to have to myself. And I scheduled everybody in based on what they were willing and able to do for me. So that worked out really well. And my dad had a couple of real good friends that would come and provide respite as well. And the thing with, having a terminal illness is that you start to not feel good, eventually at some point, maybe earlier for some. And your tolerance level for other people diminishes a lot. And my father's did for sure. And it got to the point where he was like, I appreciate that so-and-so wants to come, but I can't deal with this person anymore. And it was nothing personal against that person. It was just, my dad was getting to the point where it was really literally only like my brothers and I that he really wanted around. Because I think he knew he could get snippy with us and we were still going to love him and take care of him. And I think that he got to a point where he didn't want other people to see him that way. So, but having that schedule, having respite was key to my sanity. And caregiver burnout is a real thing. And it's important for you as the primary caregiver to get support and get respite when you can. Every scenario is different. So you might be coming to me or coming to this podcast as like literally you're the only child, or you're like the only person that this loved one has to rely on. I hope that that is not the case, but I feel like that does happen probably more often than not, that it just falls onto one person. That is a humongous burden to take on. It's a beautiful gift to give that loved one, but it is also, I can't imagine not having support. So that is another reason for this podcast. I want to try to give you some support and offer some tips, but I reached out to my dad's friends, and so many people were willing to come in and sit with my dad. My mother, who divorced my father 35 years prior, my parents remained great friends right to the end, and my mother would come and do respite for us. So tap the people that you can tap, and take advantage of friends. If you go to church, if you belong to a group, like, don't just limit yourself to family, because family can let you down, and not everybody can handle death. Not everyone can handle the impending truth that this person is going to die, and all the things that come along with that, and seeing them, deteriorate and become a shell of the person that you once knew and loved, and So it's tough. It's tough. Dying and death is tough for people. So think outside the box when it comes to support. Don't just kind of zero in on the people directly around you. You'll be surprised at the people that will step up and help you. The one thing you want to be sure of is that the person or the people coming in to help give you respite, that the person that you're taking care of, your loved one that's dying, is comfortable with that person. My father, towards the end, his personality changed a lot. And that's another piece we'll talk about repeatedly, probably in these podcasts to come. But it was the one thing that nobody, I guess not that nobody told me about. It was the one thing I wasn't prepared for. My dad, like I said earlier, was a jovial, happy-go-lucky, always, just always in a good mood. Always happy to see you. Always ready with a hug. And in my whole life, I can't remember my father making me cry, aside from probably saying no to something I wanted. But my dad was not a malicious person. He wasn't cruel. He wouldn't make someone cry just for the sake of doing it. But cancer brain and cancer that's eating away at your body will change your personality. And that was the hardest part for me to deal with. Like, I was prepared for him to physically look different. I was prepared for him to not be able to do things for himself anymore, and I would have to step up and help him with things. But what I wasn't prepared for was the personality change, which was devastating to me. My father was meticulous with taking his blood pressure and noting his medications, and everything was systematic. He was very OCD, and it got progressively worse as we went along through this journey. There were days when he was trying to teach me his medication list and how to put them all together, and we would be sitting side by side at the kitchen table, and luckily this big hair of mine would be covering this side of my face, and my dad would be at me, and I would just be crying silently, and it was horrible. It was fucking horrible. And my dad never made me cry. Never. Not like that. And to just make me feel like I was incompetent, and it was horrible. It was horrible. But, wipe away the tears and try not to let him see that, and move on, because I knew it wasn't my dad. I knew it was the cancer. But the personality change is a big one. And there's a lot of anger, which is, oh my God, so justified. I would be pissed off too if I knew my number was coming, my number was about to be checked. So, understandably so, but it does not make it easy. And it tests your patience, and it tests your resolve. So, all these little components are important to remember when you're going through this, and it's important to have respite and have other people that can come in and give you a break. And, sometimes you just need to walk out of the room and take several deep breaths and just find some zen, because this is a difficult journey every single day. There's going to be a different challenge, a different problem that comes up. But if you have some support, it makes a world of difference. My father, so I was always looking for other people to come in and do respite, just as backup, as, just to give me a break, because the more my dad deteriorated, the harder the job got, and the more I felt like, oh boy, I could really use a couple of hours to just get out of here, and go have lunch with my girlfriends, or go just window shop, or whatever. And I suggested to my father, I had reached out to my niece, who was an adult, and I said, do you want to come hang out and, maybe spend a couple of hours, with Grampy? And she was completely on board. She said, sure, I can do these days and these times. And, she had a young child, so I just wanted to see what she was able to offer. And when I told my father that, he lost his shit. He was like, I don't want her coming here and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you love her. I don't want my granddaughter taking care of me. And I was pissed off because I was like, well, Jesus, like I'm busting my ass here trying to take care of you, but I do need a break from now and again. And I'm trying to bring in people that I know you love, I know you trust, and, want to come here and take care of you, want to help, want to do their part. So, but my father was adamant. He's like, she is not going to come here and take care of me. I was like, okay. And, he threw some guilt on me for even suggesting such a thing. The bottom line is, when I was able to sit back and analyze it a little bit, I realized that my father's problem with my niece going in there to take care of him was that my dad was turning into kind of a dick. And I'm going to say that just because that's the truth. And I think he knew it, and he didn't want his granddaughter to take the brunt of any of that that verbal abuse. And I say verbal abuse, and I don't mean he would do it maliciously or like intentionally. He just couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. And he did not want his precious little granddaughter, who he adored, to see him that way, or for him to react to her in a way that would change her opinion of him. And that is the bottom line to why he didn't want her coming. It wasn't because she was incompetent. It wasn't because he didn't love her. It was because he didn't want her to take that abuse that he couldn't help. And I say abuse, and maybe that's not the right word, but and so my options got more limited as we progressed through this journey with him. So it really came down to me and my brothers and my sister-in-law. Like that was kind of where we were at towards the end. So, but while he was still feeling relatively good or well, he would allow his friends to come in and stay the night and take care of him and hang out and just keep their eye on him, so just think outside the box. Think about their friends that maybe still are capable to come in. And even if it's not an overnight, even if it's just a few hours for you to go and just do something on your own, take a nap, have a massage, go shopping, eat lunch with your girlfriends or boyfriends or whoever you want to, spend some time with. Away from that, it's super, super important. There are some resources out there for you. I don't have a lot of experience with Alzheimer's or dementia patients or people that are dying from that, but there is a website that I will list that you can go to and get some help and resources for that. The American Cancer Society has a wonderful website, and I think it's if you just go to American Cancer Society and put in caregiving or caregiving support, you'll find some resources there too, which are very helpful. Do a Google search on caregiver burnout and resources near you, and you likely find a support group that you can join, or, find some people that are in the similar situations in your area that can maybe, offer some much needed support for you. But it's super important to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. You're no good to anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself. So that is kind of the topic I wanted to touch on today. And I'm going to wrap it up for now for that piece. And I hope that you do take time for yourself, and it's okay to just walk out of the room, take a few deep breaths. We'll dive into some deeper stuff later on as we move through this podcast. But I wish you peace and love, and thank you for stopping by. I hope you'll join me again. And if you like this podcast and it's resonating with you, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you'll be aware when I put out a new one. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you soon.